All right. Hi, Dr. Mark here from Natural Health. Hope you're having a great day. Tonight we're talking about foods and moods for children. This month has been all about brain health. So we're talking about brain and different things going on with that and how food's connected there. Uh, 40 years almost. So having all kind of fun, doing nutrition and chiropractic, of course, and getting the body healthy. A lot of call for that now with all the stuff going on out there. Trying to get the immune system to work correctly, and then trying not to be afraid, but to be healthy. So anyway, we'll go into our little talk. The gut-brain connection, very important connection. Really discovered much more about that in the last 10 years. How what you eat has a lot to do with how your brain works. So that's got to do, how affect think and feel. So moods and how we think. Also, of course, how the immune system works. All that kind of stuff, all connected with the gut and the brain. So the gut again have a lot to do with immunity, how that works, all the things that go on there. So like that. We're talking about this for children tonight, but actually it's about for adults too. The same thinking goes for them. Just that kids are kind of stuck in schools, and sometimes they don't get a chance to eat what they really should be eating. Or a lot of times parents too don't really realize that makes a big difference. I've heard many reports from medical doctor, from patients who went to medical doctors and said that food had nothing to do with their health. Well, anybody with a brain knows that that's not true. So anyway, we'll go into what we look at. So this is our the gut itself, and it looks at these are the cells that line the gut, and then you have the vascular system here that absorbs the foods or whatever else is in the gut, coming in down the tube there. So, of course, we're wanting the body to absorb good foods, but if it has a problem with foods and the wrong kind of foods are in there, or the wrong pH is in there, all these bugs and things get out of hand, and eventually can work their way through a system that has gotten irritated or inflamed, causing the micro holes that allow these bugs or gluten or lectins or whatever to get into the bloodstream. And the body has to fight that as an immune system response, which makes for autoimmune issues if that's going on, or if the food that's coming through the gut is undigested or not digested correctly, proteins can get into these areas too, and that causes food allergies. So most of the people that come in here to the office, when I do the nutrition response testing technique that I do, I find that they have leaky gut. And so whenever they eat certain foods, then of course, every time they eat, they're inflaming the gut, they're inflaming their body, they're inflaming the brain, brain fog, all kinds of things go on there. So we try to get them to understand what it takes to get this gut lined back up, get away from the food allergies, get the gut healed up so that you can start absorbing the correct foods and digest correctly. Proteins have to be digested correctly, fats have to be absorbed or emulsified correctly to be absorbed, and the thing we'll find too are carbs don't need much digestion. They sneak right in there and cause all kind of problems with insulin curves and things like that. So we want to look at the good foods. The pictures we're looking at here are really more of microorganisms and things from outside the body. And to realize that the tube, the actual gut tube, inside of that is outside the body. Even though it's in the body, it's part of the outside. So that's your external environment that you're getting on the inside of the body, but in the tube. So to realize that. So anyway, we want to get this all working correctly, get this body cleaned up. A lot of things go on with that. So I think we have a few pictures here of foods that you shouldn't eat. Now this one, of course, this is muffins and things, and that's a big problem. I talk about this to our patients a lot. In our society, we certainly have a problem with everything that has to be celebrated has to have a lot of junk food tied to it. We have to have cookies, candies, cakes, soda, pizza, all kind of stuff. Whenever there's a birthday, any kind of event, any kind of holiday, you have to eat a lot of junk food. And of course that throws this gut into a problem and makes the microorganisms, the toxins and things, grow more. The sugary foods, the carbohydrate foods, have a tendency to lower the pH in the gut and allows these yeast and mold and all this kind of stuff to get into the gut. And that's going to cause a lot of toxins in there, which that gets into here, goes to the brain, causes a lot of problems with the moods, the emotions, all that kind of thing. There too, the glutens, of course, in the wheat, barley, and rye foods, which this, of course, is going to be a bread, which is going to have a lot of wheat in it, normally, unless you know what you're doing. Now, there's ways of making this without wheat flour. We have a lot of those recipes on our website. You can even make whipped cream out of different things that don't have other sugar and junk in there. Of course, don't eat the candles. That's important. Of course, all the sodas, even if it has fruit in it, it's a lot of these sodas and drinks are sold with fruit, thinking that that's oh so good. And there's very little fruit in it. It's mostly sugar and fructose and all that kind of stuff. And of course, the carbonation in soda, the phosphoric acid there is very hard on the bones. The body has to neutralize that acid with calcium. It's very hard on the bones. That's why the teeth really suffer a lot with soda. Again, cookies, a lot of high carb stuff in there, a lot of refined flours and sugars, which the thing is that if you go to the MDs, or the mainstream, I guess I should say, medical people, look at sugar as just being sugar. So they think that if you have a cookie, it's the same as having fruit. It's just sugar. Well, again, the body can handle a little glucose, but it's normally in sugars, or even in vegetables that have sugars, there's lots of minerals and fiber and things with them. In processed sugars and things like these, there is none of that. So the body absorbs the sugar very quickly. It doesn't take much to digest carbs, and it's absorbed very quickly. Insulin goes crazy high. The blood sugar goes crazy high first. Then insulin chases that. So when the blood sugar goes up, that's why kids go into this euphoria and crazy attitudes and things. And then as soon as the body gets the insulin weight up, to pull that out so you don't go into a diabetic coma, the blood sugar drops down to nothing. Then they're real depressed, grumpy, tired, all that kind of thing. So that's why refined sugars have no way of controlling. The body doesn't control that very well. The body was never meant to have these kind of foods. They're not going to be foods, but desserts. It never was really meant to have that. You don't see cookies growing on trees. It'll be fruit, and that has sugar in it, which is okay, but with all the minerals and the fibers and things that go with it. So again, when you see this blood sugar thing going up and down, then you're going to have problems with mood. And of course, the kids that are trying to study and learn are going to have lots of problems with that. So this is no different than cereal. Your cereals are the same thing, all the great ones, like Frosted Flakes and Captain Crunch and all the ones that, forever and ever. Same difference. So donuts, bagels, all that stuff, that's just going to make your blood sugar go way up. And it's going to chase it. By 10 o'clock, it's going to crash. It works the same way for adults, too, by the way. Adults will go ahead and have coffee, kind of get themselves a balance a little bit. But again, you're still chasing all this stuff, and the body suffers for that. And then you wonder why you have diabetes. Why is half of this country diabetic or pre-diabetic? Gee, I wonder why. What about whole foods? And what's the difference between that stuff and whole foods? Well, whole foods are things that this body's meant to work on. It's what this body was designed to use and digest correctly when digestion is working correctly, and absorb all the nutrients that go with it. So a good example, I think, and it's a very confusing example, is vitamin C. Vitamin C is sold as ascorbic acid in this country. The FDA allows ascorbic acid to be called vitamin C. The vitamin C is not the vitamin C complex. Ascorbic acid is not the whole complex, only one part. So ascorbic acid as vitamin C, and usually you see that in stores in high milligram tablets, like 500,000 milligram tablets. That's ascorbic acid. Most of the things you buy in stores are ascorbic acid. So the only reason that works is as an acid, and it neutralizes some of the base effects of refined foods. Where when you get vitamin C in these foods, like that are in tomatoes and things and broccoli and stuff, that's the vitamin C complex. Ascorbic acid will not stop scurvy, but these things will, as a vitamin C complex deficiency. That's what scurvy is. So anyway, it's just important to realize you're getting all of the minerals and vitamins and things in these foods, where in these foods, you're just getting carbs and artificial colorings and preservatives and all the things that you don't need there. Of course, it tastes good, but that's how the manufacturers get you to eat a lot of it. Other good foods, of course, proteins, really important. We have asparagus and vegetables. Vegetables, the food pyramid, I'm working on making a food pyramid, but the base of that should be proteins and vegetables. That's what you should live on most all the time. And then other things that come along, but those are the main things. The problem with meats is most people that have been living on carbohydrates and junk don't have the ability to digest meats very well, and fats. Anybody who has a gallbladder that's been taken out or liver issues, they don't digest fats very good. So then they stop eating them. Well, that causes all kinds of problems. All of your good oil-soluble vitamins, A, D, E, and K, are found in fats. And all your amino acids are found in meats. And if you want all the amino acids, you have to eat meats, or you have to know what you're doing if you're a vegetarian vegan. And a lot of vegetarian vegans don't know what they're doing. They think they're just going to get by, but then they become deficient in amino acids or fatty acids. Real important to know there. Fruits, again, back to that, the berries are the low sugar fruits. We try to get our patients to eat, if you're going to eat fruits, eat low sugar fruits. Not like bananas. Bananas are a terrible fruit to get as far as the sugar. They taste good, of course, and you've been told forever that you should eat, especially old people, you need to eat a lot of bananas, they got a lot of potassium in there. Well, yeah, it's loaded full of sugar too. So there's your diabetes, your blood pressure going up. So just eat celery. Celery has the same amount of potassium, but not the sugar and more fiber. Much better place. And that's with fruits too. You can make choices and not eat the real sugary fruits. We also tell our patients to keep those 2 hours away from other foods because of the sugar. In fruit, fructose is the sugar in there. And fructose is hard for the liver to digest or break down into glucose and sucrose. So it's important to keep that away from other foods so there's not a digestive issue there. I think that's enough. Well, here's some more fun foods too. Oh, your nuts are always good. Again, walnuts are interesting, I think, because they look like brain, and that's something that in nature, there's a lot of foods that look like something that's really good for you. So walnuts are really good for brain function. Again, almonds are good. They have cashews here. I'm not about carbs there, but other than that, you can get a hold of, unless you have problems digesting them again, make sure and chew them up good. So I think, again, that's enough for me and let Dr. Chip take over. I just want to really point out about the pH. pH is something that we totally don't even really know anything about, or mainstream really doesn't. And it's so important to get the pH to balance because you really can't get your gut to work correctly if you don't get the pH correct. So you can take all the probiotics you want to, handfuls and handfuls, and it won't work if the pH is wrong. The pHs have to be just the right amount for certain bacteria to live in. And if it's too base, you have more yeast and mold and junk. And if you want it more acidic but not too far, but that's not a problem usually around our world. So anyway, that's enough for me. Dr. Chip can take over with more fun information.
All right, thank you. Okay, so Dr. Mark explained more about how the foods affect our moods. I'm going to try to explain how our moods affect how we eat, the foods that we eat. So again, the gut-brain connection, foods we eat affect how we think and feel, or vice versa, how we think and feel affects the foods that we tend to eat. Again, we're definitely in a kind of more stressful times here. So again, it's always good to know how the stress plays a factor on our lives. So now again, stress is not bad. We need stress. Stress is actually a part of life. We just need to know how to balance it or how to adapt to it. And as parents, you would say is that we have a lot of different areas where stress is involved, such as finances, business, relatives, social, being out and about, and then decisions. And again, that does play a lot of factors on our health and well-being. But then again, we have to make sure that we kind of know what the kids are going through, especially in these times, is kind of a crazy time, but again, social, kind of the kids that they interact with, the grades that they have to get, they're competing against other kids, it could be sports, it could be academics and all that, and the decisions that they have to make too. And so again, there's all these different things that go, hand there too. Now why I talk about stress is that, again, the foods that we eat can affect our gut lining, our gut bacteria, that can play a big role on our health. But going back to this slide here, so when our kind of thinking and feeling, the stress that is put on our bodies and our brains, kind of how our nervous system interprets it, that can play a very crucial role on the gut. And so if we're overly stressed, then again, the gut is not actually functioning the way it's supposed to. And so like what Dr. Mark explained too is that there's certain foods that we eat and certain things that we can do for long periods of time that over time it actually causes there's leakages or leaks in the gut lining there. Now again, that's a very important thing to know because what about the viruses, the bacteria, everything is that's either in our gut or that's around in our environments that can play a really crucial role there. Now what about if we're overly stressed? Where does the blood go that we need to, you would say, run from a tiger, or we're getting stressed out at work, or watching the news too much, or there's something, a catastrophe going on? Well, the blood does not go to the gut anymore. It actually gets shunted from your core to your other muscles of your body, say the arms and the legs. And so when that happens, again, it does the same thing. It causes the leaks to be more apparent there. And why that's important is that if we are overly stressed and we're not, managing that well, then that causes our guts to overact in a certain way there too. And so that's why this gut-brain connection is so important, so crucial, is that, again, the foods that we eat can definitely play a factor. Again, I think everybody knows that when we are eating too much of these things, or drinking too much of this, or eating too much of these, we don't really feel typically our best that next day or the hours following. And so again, that's kind of with the kids and the parents, is that like Dr. Mark said, that blood sugar comes up. And just imagine if our bodies couldn't produce insulin. We wouldn't be able to survive if we ate a whole plate of these. And so that's why it's so important, is that our bodies are very, very smart, very intelligent, where it knows exactly what it needs to do, but we need to respect it more, and so that we can actually help it to facilitate health and well-being, so that it can actually defend us against these different viruses and bacteria that are not only very apparent kind of to the millions or trillions inside of our bodies, but also outside of our bodies. So that's why that's so important. And again, and kind of going back to this too, is that the way we think and feel is going to dictate how we eat. And so when we're overly stressed, we typically don't want to we don't really tend to reach for these foods here. We tend to reach for these foods here. And so that, again, is important, because if we know or realize that we're having a very, you would say, stressful week, or things aren't going the way we want, or it just seems very overwhelming, and we start reaching for these things again, we need to make sure that we're coming back to our senses and saying, oh, okay, something is out of balance, something that we're not taking kind of control of ourselves, and we're not helping to maintain that sufficiently. Now, again, that's always good, and that, again, when we get back to these whole foods, that's great too. But sometimes when we do eat those foods over and over, those foods that we maybe shouldn't be eating all the time, we can build bad habits. So that makes us think that we need, you would say, cookies every night before to go to bed or something like that. And that habit is not very beneficial, because the habit that's formed in our brain is very hard to break. Just do anything new for 2 or 3 days and you'll notice that it's very uncomfortable. And so when we get back to this, again, healthy habits. When we start early, as parents, when we have healthy habits, or we're being more role models for our kids, that helps the kids to make those better choices, better decisions, to eat those good foods and all that too. So again, it all starts with really that healthy habit. And if we're willing to just push a little bit, if we're willing to make a firm decision that we're going to start something new or start something different, be ready, because it's going to be a little bit uncomfortable. And that's just how our brain is wired. And so again, just again to reiterate, is that we all handle stress differently, but just know that kids might be going through some stressful times too. So making sure that you're at least kind of connecting with them and knowing what's going on in their lives too. And that'll help that whole system of the gut-brain connection. So that is it for tonight. Eddie, my brother, and I are working on a little online course or a little online platform for people who are interested. That is called True Health and Beyond. It's at truehealthandbeyond.com. Still kind of working the process, but if you'd like to know more, that's the website. And that goes, and that does it for tonight. But again, you can always follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Parler, Brighteon, and YouTube at Natural Health Quincy IL. The website is naturalhealthquincy.com. Subscribe to our email list if you would like to know information. We're always trying to help kind of put more recipes out there, different information to help you with these different times where there's so much information out there, but it's hard to know really what's the right information out there, or what at least has gotten good results for that too. So the location is 2000 Jefferson Street in Quincy, Illinois, and the number is 217-228-2040. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you got some good insight there, and we'll see you next week. Thanks.